Welcome to Senior Bitches, where we celebrate incredible women who are trailblazers over 55, who are daring to age in the most radical way, boldly and without apology. Imagine that, it's kind of revolutionary. Okay, today I am coming from the perspective of a total fangirl. I have been dying to interview this woman for years. I believe her show, The Millionaire Matchmaker, should be required viewing for anybody who's going to be venturing out into the world of dating, looking for a partner, and possibly even marriage. I watched probably about 100 episodes back to back over the last couple of months, and it's a masterclass in dating and life and dynamics between men and women. I learned so much, and in the center of this beautiful chaos is Patti Stanger, who, by the way, I'm looking at right now, and I'm officially calling her Benjamin Button because she's aging in reverse. You look gorgeous. So watching your trajectory over the years on the show, your physical transformation, your confidence, how you coach your clients, and also weaving your personal story into it, which I loved, like the man you were engaged to, planning your wedding, unfurling your adoption story, because my daughter's adopted.
I didn't know
And
that.
and all the flack you took from the biatches who gave you a hard time for being a matchmaker and not being married. So this show had...
It's not different than Laura Wasser, who doesn't want to ever get married and is the #1 divorce attorney in the world. And you said, and you were just before the break, just FYI, Mary Jo was saying she's never getting married again. So that's the end of that, right?
That could be the end of that for me. But it's like a great surgeon, a great lawyer, a great artist. It doesn't mean anything.
Too much behind the veil, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And your show, which by the way is up the charts on Netflix, that is absolutely incredible.
Seasons. We hopefully Netflix will buy all 107. They are looking at 4 different Bravo shows. We're one of the 4.
They should. They absolutely should, because it's spreading, because people are talking about it, which I love. You pull back the curtain on what really goes on in men's mind and women as well. You're a 3rd-generation matchmaker. You're coming in hot with heart and soul. And honestly, I think you do God's work. I'm serious.
Thank you.
I'm thrilled to...
I do, because I'm exhausted. So that's why. But we have a new show coming out on the CW. Hopefully it'll be in Canada. I'm not sure if it's sliced or how it works there. But it's coming out in April. We hope. We're not sure. Okay. We know that it's coming out this year. There'll be an announcement at TCA next week. And it's called Patti Stanger, the Matchmaker. It's a very different show. It's a therapy show, more of a healing show. We realize now just giving people dates doesn't work anymore. We must get to the root cause, break the patterns, and then they can get a date, but not until they break the patterns.
So did you do 2 seasons of a show that I caught that was later on? And I sort of thought you were going in that direction for your show.
$1 Million Matchmaker at We?
Yeah, and you were at you were at hotels, and the people would come and they would check in or check out together.
That was more of a resort kind of thing. We came to me. I left Bravo. They wanted my trademark, and it was a long story, and it didn't work out. They countered, but they came in too late, and I had already taken the other offer. There was a bit of a stretch in between, and it was my alma mater, and I don't put anything down at Bravo. They made me. But there was just legal stuff going behind the scenes. I didn't get fired or anything like that. So I went to We. We was a smaller network I thought I could build. Their programming was a lot different than Bravo. And if you're ever going to get a reality show on the air, the first thing you need to study is their programming. Right. What time of the day will you be airing? Will you be repeating? Do they have enough of an audience for you? And it was a very different audience. So I was offered 3rd season and I left. And I took a break. And then I went and signed with HBO TNT. And I was in the middle of doing a show where I was the millionaire, the bachelorette, the girl getting the date. And unfortunately with Scout, who did Queer Eye for the Straight Guy, COVID broke out.
Right.
But he got fired, and it was a whole, and I was also producing movies for Hallmark. I did like a major series of Hallmark. So I had a lot going on, and then we were like, and then of course, now we just came out of the strike on the scripted side. So a lot of stuff was up in the air. People were not doing the traditional things like they've done before, but the streamers are really where the old is everything is new is coming back again. As you can see, as old as 90210 and all these other shows on the scripted side, from, Gossip Girl to, I don't know, what other show, Vampire Diaries.
Well, Suits. Right. They're like, they're
Suits is a perfect example, because when Suits went viral on Netflix didn't make the reboot of Suits. NBC's just giving them a pilot order. which is
Yeah.
really unusual, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I'm developing a show around senior bitches because I'm so impassioned about the idea of like traveling around the world, talking to women over 55, because they're the new powerhouses. Like the switch is on. Like I've just talked to the most incredible women, all doing it in different, iterations. It's really incredible. But so in all seriousness, I learned so much from watching 7 seasons of your show. And I think I probably made every mistake as a woman.
8 seasons, but that's okay.
Okay, honey, sorry, 8 seasons, sorry.
100 episodes ain't easy. That's why.
No, I know. And seriously, and I was invested in every single one of them. And your show gave me so much insight into everything, like my complicity, the shit that I was doing, the men was doing. And I understand now you've got this incredible data in your brain. It must be like a computer that you can spit out. I mean, you can categorize the men and the behavior, but you also have this incredible intuition and natural skill that you can do this. Like you combine sort of right brain, left brain.
Well,
Like it's really amazing to watch.
There's been like, look, we started in the John Gray School of Mars and Venus, but that was surfacey. It was always like I hate to say this, and I'm not pro only women. I'm pro humanity. Like I'm all about
Me too.
humanity. I'm not
Me
like,
too.
oh, men did this, and I don't have absolutes in my head going, all men are this or all women are that. But there was this whole like service the man and he'll be happy and he'll never leave you philosophy. And that was going on for generations. And then we get into the 60s and we start burning our bras and doing acid and free love, free this. But that didn't help either, because then the men sat back as fat cats in the 70s and the 80s. And it wasn't until the 90s, I think, where Sex and the City was like we were equal with men, which we're really not. Our biology is completely different. We now know that biology and epigenetics are running the streets of our relationships. So there's the whole thing of oxytocin bonding you when you're under 55 and under. And I still think it even bonds you after menopause. I am not 100% believer that.
Oh, it bonds. I'm post-menopause and it bonds you. It bonds you.
I still believe that we were programmed to bond. We are women. This is naturally who we are. Maybe not as much as it did when we were younger, let's say in our 30s and 20s, when we really want to populate. But there's also the epigenetics. Who is your mother? Who is your father? I came from a drug addict mother who had another child. She gave up for adoption before me and then had 2 children before that. She was always on the run, searching for love, trying to find the one to love her. If I looked at her, she had an anxious avoidant type of personality, which we know attachment theory is big now. And
Huge.
we realize now that DNA went into me. Then on my father's side, which I just found out from Ancestry, was a very famous composer. He was from Romania and he was an orphan on the Romanian orphan train to Brooklyn. So I've got 2, I'm not good enough, I got to be better than everyone else, programming me. And then I go off into the world and I have an alcoholic father who raises me. And my mother just looked the other way all those years. That has to form something. The abuse starts to come. I gravitate to drug addicts and alcoholics. I gravitate to those who I'm trying to fix and save. And then I wonder why I'm a certain age and it didn't work. And by the way, it's not always like evident. Like it could take up to 7 months to a year for the truth of a narc. I'm really into the narc. Narcissists who have no empathy, no compassion, no feeling, and they don't show who they are until you're all in. And then once you're all in, you're sucked into the universe. So the more
right.
So there's that going on too. So we women can't win. It's like there's no way of winning. It's like either we're too much or not good enough. It's very much the speech in Barbie. We're never enough. And if you go this way, that'll happen. If you go that, and then men seem to be ruling the roost. And we see it on Bumble now. Women make the first move. But great, you're going to get a beta. If you want an alpha and you're a beta woman, you're going to get another beta.
You talked about this like even years ago when I was at a brief conversation about this with you. And I've read a lot of literature on this, that it's really important that the women have the feminine rules and the males have the male rule. And it's so interesting because all that stuff you said, I think it is like science, like bred in the bone, how we come into this world. And I've got some of that too. And the last couple of relationships I've had have been with narcissists. And I didn't see any of it.
There's a reason why. So I'm very metaphysical and very spiritual. I'm non-denominational. Of course, I was raised a Jew. I'm pro-Israel, but I'm not pro the humanity on the Palestinian side. I'm just pro somebody comes in and murders your children, you're going to fight back, like the Holocaust. Okay. So that's got nothing to do with it. But what I am is very metaphysical. I'm in the ascension process, just like everybody else. We're ascending to a newer earth. We cannot sustain ourselves in this kind of like, simulation, the matrix, the way we're going, Ukraine, Israel, Hamas. I mean, everything's losing abortion. I mean, things are crazy right now. We're in a crazy matrix.
And a lot of it's testosterone and male oriented.
The patriarchal society.
Yeah, with social media, But
it doesn't mean that feminism, like I'm not a feminist where I don't want you to make a reservation and open my car door. I'm not that. I'm equal pay for equal dollar. If I'm doing twice as much work, I get twice as much money more than the man who only does a one-noter because his corpus callosum is not as big as mine and I can multitask. But what we're seeing now is that 60% of the population is narcs. Male, female, gay, straight, fluid.
Well, they're facilitated. They're facilitated. And the online dating platform facilitates it, especially for men, because it goes, I think it's a gateway to their lowest common bad habits. It's ADHD, it's swiping, it's looking for the next best thing. I don't have to commit. And all this thing about the avoidant and the anxious and the secure, I've been looking into that. Like it's a sickness.
It's even more because as the planet ascends, and if you believe in reincarnation like I do, and you're trying to get off the reincarnation wheel, which just keep coming back with the same people over again, knocking it out, it's not working. We have these people, the Putins of the world, the Trumps of the world, to trigger us so that we go, no, that's not acceptable. And then we level up. Because as you level up, there may be less to choose from, but there's better quality. The question is, are you willing to level up? And most people are not. They're not willing to level up.
No, they're not.
Then be alone.
Yeah, and I had this conversation with a woman last night, and she basically said to me, gold digger, completely. And I was trying to have a conversation with her, and she's lined up 3 dates in Europe. She's going to try them all out because she wants money. She wants to be taken care of. And this to her is a compromise. So of course I see impending disaster. I don't say anything. I just like, well, try it for a year and see how it works for you.
You know what it usually is? Somebody who said there are two types of people that are gold diggers. There's the one, I've always had money. I've always had this. I have a diva lifestyle of what I want. And I need the next best great thing because objects fulfill me, not connection and intimacy. And then there's the poor person who says, I've been working my whole life. I'm exhausted. I have 3 kids to take care of. Wouldn't it be nice if I could be a trophy wife, stay home, and then my husband takes care of me? But what they don't realize, those maniacal maniac men who have the private planes and the 50 homes and have ADD, because I work with them, they don't have time for you. And so either they become the personal assistant they cheat on. I'm not saying Jeff Bezos. I love Amazon, but if it looks like a duck, it walks like a duck.
Well, there's no free lunch. Like there's no free lunch.
Or what we heard about Bill Gates, which was horrific, that he put in his, papers when he was getting married. He said, once a year, I get to go 2 weeks away in the Outer Banks with my scientist ex-girlfriend for 2 weeks. You can't contact me. And every year I get that. And when it came out during the Epstein information, she was horrified, his ex-wife, and was like, we're getting divorced. I'm done. Because I don't need people knowing what I gave up in order to get you to be rich. Like you sit there and go, what are you really getting at the end of the day? If you were sick, would he take care of you? Or would he send somebody to take care of you? Which isn't the same thing.
No, right? It's not. No, it's transactional.
Right. Number 2, you drive in private planes and you get to eat the best food and you get to travel and buy any Birkin you want. After that, it wears off because you have to talk. So I have a friend who's marrying a guy, 150 million, super successful. He's crazy about her, first one after the ex-wife, and there's no sex. And I said,
is there a big age difference? Is there a big age difference between the two?
It's 15-year age difference. But I said, she's in MENA going down. He's in this going down. But I said, do you like his conversations? Not really. They like to shop and eat. That's their thing. And I said, to each his own. I have no judgment, but it'll get boring after a while if you marry him. Because it's like, you have to have conversation. You have to have connection. You want to hold someone's hand. Maybe the sex isn't mind-boggling at that age, but you still want to be touched. You still want to be held. You still want to be comforted. And I don't put her down for it. It's who she is. But in her relationships, when she went for love, she got burned. So now
Well,
let's go for money.
let's
Like
go for the
that's
money, but right. But the whole thing, everything you're talking about, it's an inside job. And so you could be the most beautiful woman in the world, the most affluent, everything. But if you're not okay inside and you're not loved and you don't feel appreciated and you've got all these issues, then it's, to me, it's hell. And another thing that was really interesting, I have to admit, my favorite thing on your show, and I'm not, I'm not obsessed, but a little obsessed, is when you threw the millionaires out of the club.
which
Like when
is
you would come in.
because we went back to Bravo before I did the CW show and we said, why don't we bring Millionaire Matchmaker back? And he was like, oh, I don't think it would work at a time. I said, Trump's going to be going for the presidency. We got all this sexual shit going on. You
Yeah.
don't think that on every street corner in America, there are men and women, there are women too, who are pains in the freaking ass that should be thrown out of the office. No, no, no. And I was like, okay.
No, this was the best thing.
That not be, and then it drops on Netflix, goes viral, is in the suggestion box, where the younger generation, the teens and the tweens are watching this, coming up to me on the street corners and all over the United States and saying, oh my God, and my DMs are filling up. We love the show because the biology hasn't changed. Just
The biology hasn't changed. You were unfiltered. It
technology.
was slightly politically correct, all that stuff that I absolutely love. And there's also a learning lesson in it, because when you throw these guys out of the club, they walk in with flowers and chocolates for you, and they think that, shiny, I've done good. And you're like, dude, and you tell them, and they're like infantilized. They're clueless. And then they get scared of you, which is my favorite part. But then I'm thinking, do we facilitate this behavior with them and coddle them, or are they internally that clueless? They behave that way?
The most, it's weird. The various degrees of the millionaire and the billionaire is very interesting. The uglier you are, the more sense of entitlement you have. The more you don't take care of your body, don't work out, don't eat right foods, don't get plugs, don't do what. Just like women have to do everything from head to toe. The more they get nastier and meaner, like Vegas Dave. I don't know if that's the season that's
Oh, I love Vegas Dave.
Vegas Dave was like this nasty sports guy, very like he's the messiah on betting in Vegas. And he was so mean and rude to the women at the mixer that I'll never forget it. I was like, you look like, remember the old days it was Twitter had an egg? I go, you look like a Twitter egg. Like, who are you to put my women down? So there's that. Then you get to the other side of the spectrum, the best looking guys who are rich. They'll take an 8 over a 10. They're not looking for Victoria's Secret. They're not going Leo DiCaprio.
Oh, really? I wouldn't think that. That's interesting.
Normalcy, yes. Very
because because I think of some of your guests, and a couple stuck out to me. Well, first of all, in your book you write about it. I read your book. I love your book. This is a great book. 8 easy steps for attracting your perfect mate. Again, I learned so much shit in that. But yeah, it's great. And I don't think it changes. I think it's great advice. I think it's something that's absolutely utterly timeless.
It's my grandmother's recipe. It's not changed. The book still works. There's online dating in there. Nothing's really changed on the online space. The only thing that's changed is vetting. If I were going to write another book, it had a vet for the narcs, for the people that are wasting your time, the love bombing, the devaluation, the discarding, the triangulation, the hoovering, all the things that we're learning now. We got sucked into this person. I remember I was walking for the Red Heart truth thing, and with all the A-list celebrities, and Christy Brinkley came up to me and said, I don't understand, why do I keep attracting narcs? And she was the first person that I spoke to that went, wait a second. She's attracting narcs. Like I had to really take a step back and go, why would a beautiful woman who's smart and educated, all her
But isn't that who they go after? Well, isn't that who they love?
The thing is, the love bombing can last a bit of time, 6 to 7 months, sometimes 9 months. And it gets to a point where after you get to the 9-month mark, maybe the 6-month mark, if it's a little bit earlier, they stop doing what they did. And then you're like, wait, who dropped the floor underneath me? And what just happened? And then they start to pick on you. And so that is when I started to realize there was something weird going on. And that was many years ago, like 15 years ago. Now I'm starting to see it. It's every street corner in America. And there are women that are narcs. There are men that are narcs. They're gay. They're straight. They're bi. They're fluid. This is an epidemic of this. The selfishness. Right. And yes,
it's the external too. It's the external. It's like everything is surface, right? Like idealized self. Here I am. I present. Look at my social. Look at my curated life. Everything's perfect.
But it's not even looks. The selfishness is not coming from, I have to have perfection. You're seeing that in Hollywood. But when you get to real life Narc City, they will get lower supply. They'll get downgraded supply. They'll get somebody who's worse than you, not as pretty, not as smart, not as intelligent. Go, why did he go with her? Sometimes they trade up. 90% of the time they'll go down because you were not compliant. You questioned things. That was difficult for them. And so now we'll get like, there's a lot of women that sit in the back of the house, will take so much abuse from a man and just sit there like the domestic violence victim, unfortunately, and take it. And then after a certain period of times, one day it explodes. Maybe she might murder him, but she'll take it for a very long period of time. And that's what we're seeing this happen everywhere. I have a guy friend who's taking it right now. She didn't even see him for Christmas and New Year's. I'm like, that's not a relationship. I hate to tell you that. You know, her calling you and telling you she loves you is not enough.
No.
You get this idea that was, and a lot of times these people forget what it's like to be in a healthy relationship. They didn't have role models from their parents or grandparents. They never had a person who was nice to them.
Well, it's almost like sport, and it's also a psychosis, right? Like my last situation was with a narcissist. And I have learned so much from that. But so we were like 6 or 7 months, like, you know, I could go into a ton of detail, but something came up that I knew was not correct. And I initiated a conversation and was like, okay, I'll call you tonight. We'll talk about it. Of course, never heard from him again.
How many months did you go out with him for?
6 or 7. So exactly.
So that is a critical point. Every 3 months, there's a change in the relation up to 7 years. A very critical point is the 6-month mark, 6 to 7th month mark. The mask comes down. You figure them out. You want to work on the relationship, but that's work. So they have to leave. And then they start to devalue you. Well, she's already found me out. She might leave me first before I leave her. Now that she knows there's a deal breaker in sight. When you have a deal breaker, you're going to question it. You have strong personality. A lot of women will look the other way and just ignore the red flag.
But I'm telling you, it took me out because I'm like, who at 62 ghosts? Like I could not even get that, wrap my head around that. Like somebody, pardon? Well, I'm 61.
Okay, I'm 60.
You're older. You look beautiful. And this is another thing that I wanted to talk to you about. Like, because I've interviewed a lot of women, a lot of beautiful women. And I find that 50% of the women will cough it up. They're so generous. They'll tell you what they've done to look beautiful and, you know, like how they. Okay. And then the other half won't. I mean, I respect both, but you had a transformation.
Okay. So I haven't done a lot. And a lot of people I had ptosis where one eye was smaller than the other eye, and it didn't look right on camera. Fixed my eyes. Never had a facelift. Really want one. Haven't had one. Have not had a nose job. So the only thing I've done on the face is the eyes, not have my lips or anything else done. I had my breasts done twice. The first time was botched. The second time wasn't. And they were lift. I have natural boobs. They were lift and smaller. And I really feel like I need to do them again because, you know, menopause kind of does it. I've done lipo on my stomach early days before I was on camera. It was a mistake. Don't do it. The fat goes somewhere else and it kind of makes you wrinkly. So I wouldn't recommend that. And the only other thing that I can think about that I've done, or like, you know, like I don't do injections anymore. I don't like them. They don't look right on me. I've done Botox for migraines and cluster headaches, which I still do. But my doctor is so good at this. He lifts this because she lifts this because it really helps the migraine points. Okay. But I don't do like, I don't know. What are they? I can't think of the names of the different injectables, but I don't do that. I did for 2 years. I hated it. Didn't do it. Don't do it anymore. I haven't done exomes for the hair, which is to try to, I lost a lot of hair loss because I have Hashimoto's. When I went into
Hashimoto's, yeah,
and it makes you lose your hair, so it's a horrible thing to do. So
well, I actually wrote a book called Scared Wheatless because my daughter got autoimmune, and I talked to a lot of people with Hashimoto's, but so she got alopecia at 8 years old and lost 70% of her hair, which was one of the most heartbreaking things that I've ever gone through. And I'm like, how can I, you know, what can I do here? So I went to Western medicine, forget it, horrible. Went to Eastern medicine. Then I decided to go gluten-free because I talked to a child nutritionist. We went gluten-free. Then I got a doctor who was absolutely amazing, who gave me a topical cream that was actually used for genital herpes, but for alopecia totalis and universalis, it grows the hair back. So we went on this journey for a year.
What was it called?
Aminoquad.
A minute
A
quad.
Miniquad. Okay, Miniquad. And so when we got it, it was like $1,500, and now it's like down to next to nothing. But that whole autoimmune and the inflammation, I went through it with my daughter, and like wrote a book, like a memoir to her as a love letter, because it's terrible. I mean, all the different ways that it can affect your health and your life.
I will tell you that if you lose your hair, it's the worst thing in the world.
I
The one
know, I
thing that has
know.
changed me dramatically, and I did spend a buku amount of money on, is I got my teeth I had veneers when I was younger. It was time to get them redone. I went to Dr. Appa. A lot of people, Kyle Richards is gone, Ramon is gone. I think Margaret Joseph is gone. He's like, my God, he did my teeth. I'm obsessed with that. So that was my favorite thing I ever did, and I did Ozempic for a month. I hated it. It gets you sick as to be. Then my doctor's a very famous functional medicine doctor in LA. And she's like, look, every now and then you fine line a little on your cholesterol, nothing to worry about. But since you're adopted and we don't know your history, I would like you to try something. And I went on Tirzepatide. I don't do it all the time, but it will level me off so I don't have to go on statins. It does burn the fat. It stabilizes your mood, which is really great. They're finding out it's great for Alzheimer's, and it's also great for addiction, even though I don't have addiction. I did quit drinking 10 years ago, and I'm sober, but I'm not sober because I have an addiction. I get cluster headaches and migraines, so I can't drink. And so, and changing your food and eating organic and paleo and gluten-free, that's the game changer. If I had to pick one thing that changed my whole life, that would be the game changer.
Well, it's always diet. It's always diet. And I learned that through my daughter. I'm off the booze too, because I found that with my drinking, the 2-drink minimum, no sex before monogamy, I found that alcohol changed my judgment. What did you say?
Maximum. Well, the reason is because when women drink,
Not maximum.
Men, and when men drink, they become women, psychologically and scientifically. If you drink and you become a man, you become aggressive.
Right.
So you want sex, you want to go for it, and you don't know what's going on here. And then when a man does it, he becomes very feminine, sappy. It's a very interesting dynamic that happens. So drinking is not healthy. We know from Dr. Amen and Dr. Huberman right now that even Dispenza will say it, that it's creating really bad matter in the brain, and it will come back later. You will get cancer, you will get Alzheimer's. These things will happen. My mom died of lung cancer. She smoked for 25 years and stopped. It came back. My dad got Alzheimer's. He was an alcoholic. It's like we are learning now that this is, and especially if you're triggering the DNA, and like there's an ancestral thing going on there. So that's another.
Yeah. And the thing with COVID is the drinking went through the roof, especially for women, became full-blown alcoholics. A lot of people, all of a sudden had a huge drinking problem. And it's funny because in Europe, because I spent some time in Rome, I love Italy, and the way they eat and drink, it's different. It's not obsessive. Do you know what I mean?
I would love to know their cancer studies, though. I would love to know what's the story on the cancer side and their immunity situation.
Well, I think their stress is so much lower. I think their stress is so much lower than the North American lifestyle.
GMO, but they also don't have GMO. We have GMO.
Right. So they've got that beautiful soil for all their food and their lifestyle, and it's not a stress-oriented lifestyle, So I found such a difference when I was over there. I felt great.
Yeah. And
no headaches.
And 2 hours of sleeping in the middle of the day does help,
A little siesta is kind of nice.
Taking a nap. Right?
It's kind of nice. So another thing that was really interesting about what you said and what you put out there is that, like, if you are serious about a relationship, be serious about it like you are about a job or a passion, or that you actually have the intent. And I think that a lot of women, we don't have the intent. We're just like, I just want a boyfriend. I don't want to be alone. I'm in dating detox, by the way, right now. But you're very clear. Like, this is, I don't know if you still feel the same way, but this is what you want, this is how you present, this is where your boundaries are, you're serious about it, you pay it forward, you don't compete against other women, like you have a good karma about you if the date is bad, or if you have a bad experience, you don't spin it that way. It's all positivity, pushing it out, but you're very accountable and responsible for your trajectory in the dating world. And I love that. Does that still work?
I think what we're doing is we're too goal oriented. I've changed a lot of my discipline. You'll see it on the new show, where this goal of us getting to the perfect meet has got to stop. It's a journey. And some of us have more appointments than others. Look at Elizabeth Taylor. Okay. So, or Kim Kardashian, or whoever you want to pick at the person of the moment. But what I think is every person is going to define and refine where you're going. For instance, if you're going to beat yourself up because you had a narc on the last one, don't. They're very good at what they do. You're a beautiful woman. Who wouldn't want you? A narc would want you more than anybody else. Maybe you didn't hit the lottery that day, or maybe this person was to teach you to refine what you want the next time. Stop beating yourself up because you've had a lot of relationships. People have to stop looking at life like that. Some people get one and done, probably our grandparents at this point. And others get more than one. And, you know, sometimes soulmates happen with, like, you meet someone while you're with somebody else. That happened, we know from your ex, if that's a soulmate, but whatever. But you know what I'm saying? Like, people cheat. They stay, you know, in these terrible toxic relationships forever because the payoff is the makeup sex or the makeup, or they just like to be the Bickersons. We've seen Bickerson people and we're like, oh my God, I'm not going out for dinner with that couple because all they're going to do at the table is bicker, and they make you feel uncomfortable, but yet they've been together 30 years. So we have to stop the judgments on everybody else and look what's right for you. What's right for you may not be right for your parents or your sister or your best friend. And, you know, the narcissism thing is really here to teach us that we need to level up and we need to be treated better. And most of us did not do that. I remember watching Sex in the City, and I remember going, how do they always sleep with someone on the first time they meet? Is that crazy that they're doing that? Because my mother and my grandmother taught me not to do that. And I remember, how do they always get new people? It's a TV show, for crying out loud. We're seeing it on the new version right now. They're still sleeping on the first date in the new version. I want to throw something at them every now and then. Or
well, that's because they put it out as that's like independence and that's power, that, like, you know, this hookup culture, and it's kind of depressing. It's not that sexy.
At the end of the day, I mean, I wanted to shoot the writers on this last season. I could not watch it. That last episode where Carrie has to wait for Aiden for
4 years.
4 years, and gets to go off with her, you know, her Indian girlfriend on vacation because he's also shooting in, I don't know, Sri Lanka. And you're sitting here going, why do you have to wait for anybody else? Maybe they're not right for you. Maybe there's something better, because why did he say, come live with me in Virginia? Like, as though he lived in you know, in Timbuktu. It was most,
I mean, he had a nice farmhouse, he had kids and everything, but it's like, really, you're going to sit around and wait for 4 years.
If you know me and we were engaged and now you have kids and you can't share your kids with me, this is not a match. That's a deal breaker. So I watch these shows going, this makes, you know, and I know, look, Michael Patrick King is a great showrunner and I'm sure he's fantastic, but, you know, this was ridiculous writing as far as
it wasn't even realistic. It didn't even register on the realistic scale.
I'm obsessed with Sarah Jessica Parker, and I loved all the people on the show. I watched it to the end, but I was like, this writing is ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense. In the real world, you wouldn't wait 4 years for somebody. You'd go off and find something because you'd feel resentful of the situation. So what I'm saying to people is, let's take a load off. Let's start to reevaluate the situation. If you're not ready to get married, fine, enjoy your 20s. If you want a family, go for the one that wants to get married, because why waste your good eggs in that particular year if you want to have a family? But if you're over 40 and you're like, I don't know what I want, I just want to have fun, I want to feel it out, do it. At risk. But that doesn't mean not get monogamy. That doesn't mean get exclusivity. That doesn't mean just sleep with 5 people and go, you know, full on polyamory. Because at the end of the day, you're going to be taken advantage of. We're watching the throuple shows. I'm watching polyamory. Nobody wins in the end. Everybody's being cheated on, jealous. That whole show years ago on Showtime, I was addicted to that show. And I knew 2 people on that show. And I was like, how do you do this? She said, it was awful. I lost my marriage over it. So at the end of the day, you have to go at your own pace. And sometimes bad shit happens. People die. People leave for other people. You get one day out of the blue, they go, I just want a divorce, I'm unhappy, and you never saw it coming. I mean, my last boyfriend was a narc, and everybody saw him on Instagram, and I never put anyone on Instagram like that. And I was like, shit, what am I going to do now? And I realized, you know, probably 7 months in, and I still went out with him till 10 months, till it exploded.
Because they're very, very charming. But I have to say,
before, my dad was a high functioning alcoholic, narcissistic workaholic, but my mom didn't leave him for 30 years. So in those days, you didn't leave. Now it's like I can leave at any moment I want. I'm not married. There's no, you know, the stakes aren't that high. But in this case, I never experienced this. Then I went down narc lane, and now the gates have been opening. The experts are calling me. YouTube's there. Like, we now know. I went on a date 2 weeks ago, 2 dates in a row. On the second date, I go, oh, he's a narc. I spotted it right there. I spotted it on a phone call. Even
well, here's the thing. The person that I was dating was so good at it, because it was like some days I'd be like, yeah. And then the next day I was like, this is a whole different angle. Oh my God, there's compassion and empathy. And listen, I don't regret it at all. It taught me so much. It like kicked me on, kicked my ass, but I have learned from every single experience. I really have. And that's the way that I look at it now. Like, every man has taught me
But I
something.
want you to look at it like, since you had a bad marriage in your mind, I want you to take Dean out of the equation. And I want you to take, that's 1,000 years ago, but I want
Yeah.
you to, what I want you to do is sublimitation, which is what we talk about when we're going to add something to the recipe instead of taking out something. So you're not just gonna, keep the pepper and the salt, and you're gonna put some garlic salt in. So what I'm trying to tell you is that you should be open to the possibility. What would it look like to you if you were to get married someday? And how would it feel? And what would it look like? And that's the bar. When you create that version of your perfect self with that perfect guy, then that person, you will level up, because you'll wait for it. You're on detox now. So while you're on detox, take reservations for the next time you want to go out there again. In the meantime, most people go, no, that door's shut. Like, if I talk to Laura Wasser, she's like, I'm never getting married again. That door's shut. She went, I think she was married once. Don't quote me on that. And the second one, the baby with who did. And she's like, that door's shut. But instead of saying it's short, saying it's open to the right one who compliments me, and we call that the divine compliment. In metaphysics, we are looking for our divine compliment, be it straight, be it gay, be it fluid, doesn't matter what sex you are. It's just that it's not so much you complete me, which is the way Jerry Maguire talked about. It's more about you blend with me. We blend. We're a good blend. We're a good recipe. And that's what people are not doing. They're going, she did one thing wrong, I'm out. So a narc would do that. A narc would say, she was sloppy. She didn't pick up after herself. So therefore I'm done. Not like we could get a housekeeper and share the expense.
Yeah, but our culture facilitates that. Our culture is disposable. And I think that I'm studying with this amazing woman in Vermont at Pathworks, and she talks about this. And really, the relationship that you have between a man and a woman is the deepest learning experience you're going to ever have in your life, because it's going to bring up every issue, every monster, every beauty, everything that you've been through in life. And I appreciate that. And I love that I'm learning about myself as I go through these experiences. And I'm not like, definite, I'm not shutting, but right now,
you were way open now than you were in the beginning of it.
I'm open, but I'm really enjoying this phase of my life, and being observant, and also figuring out what I need and what I want. So, and at 61, who knew?
That's the thing, to turn it back to you. Like, I see these women that sit in the sidelines, and I met someone who was older, never been married, in her 50s, and she was dating my friend's brother. And I said, do you want to get married? And she goes, oh, that ship has sailed. I go, what do you mean that ship has sailed? Why would that ship be sailed? Do you want to get married? Well, I don't think what do you mean you don't think? Do you want to get married? So in other words, if you wanted to get married and that person didn't, okay, you'd be like, bye. It was so great knowing you. I enjoyed our time together, but I want to get married. I want to have a baby. I want to live in China. I want to travel the high seas. Like, I want to do what I want to do. Are you willing to join me on the journey? But women go, no, in order to get the guy, I have to do X. Be quiet, stay still, don't rustle his feathers. So we're in like a 1900, show, like, Downton Abbey or something. And I'm sitting here going, no, it's about what you want. And they don't know how to do it, because they've lost themselves so many times with a man before. At that age, they don't know how to turn the clock back to become that 20-something girl who was vibrant and wanted all these things in life. And I sit there and go, oh my God, no wonder these. And then the man cheats. Then the man gets the woman who does everything he wants, and then she goes off and cheats. And I'm like, why? Because you no longer were you.
Right,
he could
right.
walk all over you. Don't you get it? And they don't see it.
Well, it's all about what you talk about. Okay, maybe in this book, I mean, I can see things have shifted and stuff like that. But the basic premise is you have boundaries, you know yourself, that there's a joy and self-love that you have, and that you're going into a relationship, offering that, but also being very conscious of who you are and what you need, your intent. right? So your intentions, you're not just going in, willy-nilly, you actually have an objective. And I think that the whole culture is set up right now. There's none of that. It's just like instant gratification,
Well, it's
instant
this.
pleasure. Yeah.
It's this. And then we have a terrible thing with social media, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, whatever you want to use. And then now you're seeing the smiles and the happiness. But then I always say, you have no idea what's going on behind closed doors. Because they
No.
put a picture on a Tuesday at 1 o'clock in the morning at a club where they're madly in love. Do you think that it's like that all the time? And I'll say, let's look at this. Okay. So the girl's with him 5 years, some football player, whatever, and never got engaged, never got married. I know someone is living with someone 5 years wants to get married, still hasn't pulled the trigger. They have money. There's no reason why they can get married because she's doing whatever he tells her to do. And so I said, you have no idea what's really going on behind closed doors. Now, the narc knows this. The narc uses social media to get the ex pissed off, to pedestal the new supply, and then one day they'll devalue them and they'll go on to the next one because they can't stay in relationships very long. They do get married, they do have kids, but eventually they torture that person, and that person will get out of a terrible divorce after 10 years and say, oh my God, I was tortured for 10 years. I have to go into therapy, put me into the institution. I'm never dating again. And the thing is, what we're seeing now is this is ammo.
But why is it so prevalent? Is the component social media? Why is it so prevalent? Has it always been this way with narcissists? And like, why now?
Social media has upped the game. So before it was like, okay, I could go to your favorite restaurant on a 7 o'clock on a Saturday. Now, or I could see your friends out and about at an art show. Like, I can have the message go through the machine, but it might take a minute. Now it's, and now you're like,
Right.
You're getting hit. So it's ammo. It's basically artillery. And that's what's happening right now. And so now you're seeing artillery left and right. You're going home and crying your eyes out. My ex, 3 weeks after we broke up, now I didn't chase him. I'm the only one who never chased him. 3 weeks after, he went off to a party and met the next one. But what I didn't know is this was his MO. I found out later, oh, he's been doing this for years. I didn't know that. I didn't know that at all. I didn't know anything about it.
I didn't chase mine. I wasn't the pursuer at all. Zero.
He kept saying to me, he goes, you're the least needy girlfriend I ever had. I'm like, dude, I'm from fucking New York and New Jersey. I'm half and half. Like, sweetheart, I'm never chasing a guy. My father would come down from heaven and kill me. Girls do not chase. Let's put it that way. And he was Catholic. So the thing is, now the truth is, some people don't have social media. My ex didn't have social media.
Either did mine.
No, so you can't really see what's going on, but there's this thing called the soul tie, and the soul tie is the connection, the energetic connection. Because remember, we're in a matrix, everything's quantum physics. So energy travels, your thoughts travel, your feelings travel. And so when sometimes you'll be walking the grocery, get like a sucker punch, and you're like, what's that? Oh yeah, it's him. He's thinking about me, or maybe he's having a fight with her. These feelings are coming. And if you talk to people, they can't break the cords, they can't break the connection. There's some kind of strong karma going on there. And you have to learn how to work within the system. And probably the next person you date, as terrible it is, my mom's line was always like, get under someone else to get over someone else. So, you will get another person and that will get you over somebody else. And, you just have to be in a healthier place to pick a better specimen, so to speak. But no, it's because of social media and the way the word travels. We have more ways for information to come to you than we've ever done.
I think bad behavior is just really facilitated too. And I think men get away with so much, and this is not about man bashing. I don't want to do that, but I really.
There's a reason. There's way more women in the world than there are men. We now found out that there'll be more women in the United States in menopause than there will be in the Gen X, Y, Z millennial stages. We also found out 4.5 million people in the United States are going to be over the age of 65 coming up in the next 2 years. And so men have the board. Now they die faster. They die 10 years younger than us.
Yeah, they're not great choices. Right. They're not the A club. 18. They're
You go
not.
online, you see what's craps on there. It's like,
I can't even believe it. I can't even believe it. Some guy takes a picture in his bathroom with rolls of toilet paper behind him and a fish. I'm like, really? And he's probably getting laid or
that's probably a
whatever.
decent guy. How about them like belly out here, hair down to the ankles, like ZZ Top, and they look like they got out of prison. Like,
And I get offended when they reach out to me. I'm like, what about this makes you think that I'm going to say yes? Like, I almost want to respond. It's so
because
bizarre to me.
for every man that is a 0, especially in California, they think they
Ugh.
deserve a 10 or better because they have a sense of entitlement. Maybe
Yeah.
one girl in a million looked at them and smiled at them once, and they think, oh, great, I can get one of the, or their best friend got one or something like that. And that's okay. Let them think that. But the truth of the matter is the quality, the cream of the top of women are not going to dumb themselves down to the 0 level and go, all right, I don't want to be alone. I'll just take a 0. We're not doing that.
Yeah, but some
money now. We have our own
Yeah.
jobs, our own careers. We are not desperate. This is not
No.
desperate times for women. More women are in colleges. More women are homeowners in the United States. More women probably do a better job than men because we multitask. We still don't get equal pay for equal dollar. But there's no reason we have to dumb ourselves down to get a guy.
No, and they're not getting married. And then you've got the incels. Scott Galloway talks about this all the time, the population of men that's just getting left behind because they have no game. They have no, they're like on purpose celibate, in their minds. But the truth is they can't even get sex, and the anger. And it's just mind blown about
I
it.
was talking to a guy online who's a journalist, really good looking guy the other day. And he was like interested in me. And I had to watch a movie for work. That's my business. I produce movies. I had to watch this new movie for work. And I said, look, I can't really talk right now. Can we talk later? And he was going on a retreat for self-help for men. I was like, oh, that's really interesting. I'd love to hear about that, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, okay. And he got miffed that I couldn't talk to him in that moment.
Well, yeah.
We're texting back and forth. I said, listen, I have to do this. Let's talk tomorrow before your trip. Never heard from him. Got off. He canceled the thing off the hinge. And I thought to myself, oh, this is a sign. See, that's a sign. So if you and I were dating back in the old days, like, oh yeah, he'll call me in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. No.
He didn't commit. He said, I will talk to you tomorrow. He didn't commit his commitment. He got pissed that I couldn't jump when he said.
Well, that's one thing I've learned about men. I'm not an expert like you, but I've learned one thing. If they want to be there, they want to call you. If they wake up in the morning and the penis is hard, they're going to text you, right? Like if they want to, they're going to do it. And if they don't, they're not going to. And all these conversations we have for what is he really thinking? What does he really mean?
I will tell you the men that are the DILFs, daddies I like to, what?
Yeah.
Those guys with children, they got to put their kids to bed. They got to pick them up from school. I'm not saying they're better than everyone, but that's where I would lean if I were a woman over the age of, let's say, 35.
Because they're divorced? If they're divorced, you mean?
Because they generally, if you ask a guy, hey, do you like being married? They're like, yeah, I love being married. Just was the wrong person. Great answer. You said to a guy, oh, I hated being married. I'd never get married again. Get out of there. But if he's like putting his kids to bed, said, look, I'm going to put my kids down at 7 and I'm going to call you at 8. And he shows up at 8. He makes reservations. That's a good guy. Go for the men who have commitments that are they own a home. They drive a nice car. And I'm not talking gazillionaires. I'm talking about people that they go into sports with their kids. They make time for you, but they make time for their children. So every guy that I've ever really dated that was a decent guy, he was a dad. He was a dad.
Yeah. Well, I call it the rinse, lather, repeat. Handsome, divorced, successful. That's been what I've been on. Put it rinse, lather, repeat. Same thing. Same situation with all the guys. So would you get married?
Yes, I would love to be married. I was the last one asked me to marry him.
Was that during the show or was this a different one?
This is the one that I just broke up with. And
it was
really heartbreaking because I loved his children and I loved his family and I still have issues with it. It was the first time in my life that I had a choice of this huge family that I've always wanted. I had the best time with my ex. He was so much fun. And he asked me, he said, listen, I want, we're going to have to live together. And I said, me, I'm not going to live with, he goes, no, you're getting a ring. We'll get married. It'll be cool. So he was serious about it at one point. I think the issue I had was he wrote in a text to me that I never knew. And this will still break my heart to this day, is that he was intimidated by my success and I wasn't working and I don't talk about what I do. I don't really bring up Bravo and I'm not really interested in that stuff. I'm more interested in, he was a businessman. He owned his own business. He was going to sell it. And I didn't know that about him because, like we never talked about it. His parents were really they loved my show. His sisters loved me, but it wasn't like that was a big conversation we had. So I was like, what are you talking about? And there were some other health issues also, but no,
Well, that's something you can't change. That's just a non-negotiable. You can't change that.
It was sad. It was sad because I was like, if I had known that, I would have cleared up. There was another thing I didn't do in that relationship, and I really recommend to people, especially women: ask questions. Ask questions.
Why are we scared to ask questions? Why are we?
We got to talk about this. My mom programmed her daughters in a very bad way. My mom was married 3 times, and she said, number one, be indispensable at work and at home. Well, that's terrible. Why would you program us that way? So
conflicting.
My sister married the millionaire and got everything, and I was the opposite. My sister also had a very strong relationship with her biological parents. I did not know mine. And so there was a lot more healing going on my sister's side. But my mom was like, my dad was a screamer. He was a functioning alcoholic. You ran in your room with your sandwich at dinner time. You waited for the screaming to be over, the bombs to stop, and then you went back to resuming business. So if anybody screamed at me, I go silent and I don't, or unless you trigger me to scream back, because I did scream back at times.
I'm the same way, yelling, no, can't do.
But I'm generally quiet. And so what happened was I didn't ask questions. And I had a lot of questions. And when at the end, he sort of ghosted me, similar to you, but a little different. And I didn't get to ask my questions. So I never had the closure. He did come back 5 months later, and he did come back 3 months later, but not to be with me. He's in another relationship. But the thing is, I could have sat down and said, okay, here's my notes on my, because I had plenty of notes. We've all written letters to the guy, and we've never sent it, in anger and rage or in happy and sad, all our moments. And I could have said, well, why'd you do this? And why'd you do that? And I didn't understand. So my mind loops. And when I work with a client who's been cheated on or broken up with, I always sit them down with the ex and say, you want to get out of jail free. You want to feel good about you. Then you've got to answer her questions. You got to answer her questions. If you answer her questions, you either have a shot of getting back together again, which sometimes they want, or B, you're exempt. You're free. You can go off into your own little world. And
well, that's the thing. Yeah. I mean, I didn't do that.
Did you get that with Dean and Tori? Did you get it with Dean and Tori or no?
To ask questions?
Ever sit down with Dean and Tori and ask them why this happened? What was he thinking? Did you ever get either one of them to answer your questions?
Dean and I did a podcast together called Exes and Uh-Ohs. Mm-hmm. And the whole premise of the podcast was, can you get along with your ex? And Mike, my little Canadian producer, produced it. Okay. And so we did it. We did 12 episodes in the can that were beautiful, were amazing. And hi in the background. And we only released 2, and then the whole thing blew up. And as we were doing it, well, Dean, for 3 or 4 or 5 years before that, had told me he was still in love with me, wanted to get back together with me. I mean, like the behind the scenes shit on this one is unbelievable. And so we got back together again to do this venture, and his wife got very upset and jealous and blew it up, and it was horrible. So over the course of the years.
What sign are you? What sign are you?
Taurus.
So both you and Tori are Tauruses.
Tauruses. Yeah. So basically, no, I wasn't even shown that respect to answer. I was like, their adversary for so long to keep the triangle, right? And then now they're getting a divorced. I believe he's in a sober living facility.
With a triangulation. Well, Dean's probably an art. The triangulation was happening.
Yes.
He triangulated you to Tori to make her feel jealous. Okay. And then every now and then he hit you hard, because I remember when he hit you hard. And then he goes off to the next one, and now the new one. I'm sure he's doing it with Tori too. So like the triangulation is a very big part of the process. Let's not
forget. In public, which was absolutely beautiful. So he's in a halfway house now on food stamps. Okay. So that's where he is. And I don't know what's going on with her. And in my estimation, they're both vile people. That's just how I feel. And I've moved on with my life.
Substance problem, because I remember when he was being a chef and stuff, and I was like, why don't you just really go be a chef? Be a chef.
Yeah.
On your feet all day long. My parents own a restaurant. I know what it's like.
I was a chef. I did like 800 episodes of cooking shows. Like, I know what hard work it is. But, to your point, like that whole thing was also so much in the public and everything, but I never had really that opportunity. And we were getting there a year and a half ago. He texted me at one point after a show that was particularly painful for him to do, because he had never processed anything. Told me. I'd never processed it.
Wait, even in the program, he didn't do all the steps and do a
No,
inventory?
no, no,
No, really?
never, never,
So maybe
never.
it's the first time he's doing the system, like he's doing the program.
Well, I think he's been in rehab 4 or 5 times, but when we were actually doing our radio show, I had 12 steps to get back together with your ex. I did sort of a takeoff on AA. And we were doing some shows that were particularly unnerving for him. And afterwards, he was like, I've not processed this. And he texted me and said, I need to see you face to face to tell you something. I have to tell you this. And then everything blew up. So I have no idea what it is. But no, I never had that opportunity. I figured it out as I went.
I know. So it takes a longer road to figure it out as you went. So a lot of times I like to nip it in the bud and get the answers, because remember that I was going to do this show a long time ago. We were thinking about Dr. Jew with Mike, one of the major players at Fox, and it was called Cheater's House. And I created the show. It was during the Jesse James situation with Sandra Bullock and Tiger.
Oh,
and I had a radio
yeah.
show called XOXO on Sirius, on the Pink channel. And
Yeah.
we got, because all of my callers were always about cheating, like kind of like Ryan's Roses. And
Yeah.
I basically said, I want to create a cheater's house where we can actually do what I really do in my real business. And, you know, because a lot of them cheat. And so I had to sit down and I worked it out. And I realized if they all ended up talking to one another, the cheater, okay, may not have empathy like you and I have, but he'd get an education. The cheaty would be like, oof, I'm free. I dodged a bullet. And the person that he cheated with on sometimes took a step back and said, yeah, I don't want you after that, because I've seen what you did to her. You're going to do that to me, if they're smart enough to see it. So it really changed people's lives when I would do that regularly. And I always saw that the person who got cheated on, if they got the why, they were set free, even if it was horrible, even if they had children, even if it was like a 50-year marriage. Like, it was always like, oh yeah, this isn't my problem, this is yours.
Yeah, I see it that way. And if I had have got an answer, I saw it, you know, I wasn't going to get the answer from that situation. So
I
I had to learn a lot through that situation, a lot. And it took me a few times to learn the lesson, you know, in particular, going back and doing a project with him. And then, of course, I recognized this is not my story at all. It's his story. And, you know, anyway, he's estranged from my children, all that stuff. So like, we're free from it. And
you have 2 kids with him? 2 kids?
I had my 25-year-old who's going to go to law school. My daughter's in pre-med, Kanena Hora, you know, so my daughter's adopted, 18 years old. It's so funny. She looks like you, and she's in university, and wants to be a doctor. And my son is about to go to law school, and, you know,
you did something right.
And all the public, you know, hoopla and all that stuff really damaged my family badly. But we have really we've really healed from it.
I understand that.
And it took a long time. It was not easy. It was not easy to heal from it.
By the way, I know Tori really well, so I wish her really well. She knows that I love her. She knows that I'm rooting for her to come out of this unscathed and find health and happiness. I'm not rooting for anyone to get hurt.
Well, I sort of think at the end of the day, if Dean got his shit together and he was a great dad and got his act together and could be a good dad to his children, great. That I'm all for that. I'm all for that. But I have very strict boundaries as far as he's concerned. But if he can be a great dad, that's amazing. You know, at the end of the day, that would be wonderful. I could talk to you for 10 days because you're really smart, Patti.
Thank you.
It's not just the dating shit. I love quantum physics. I'm obsessed with them.
Yeah,
so
really like the healing our souls. That's what we're here for.
You can see it. You can see it, like you're glowing. You can see, you know, that there's been an internal shift. So I have 2 more questions for you before I let you go, because I'm sure you're busy. And we thank you so much for spending time with us today. We loved it.
One of my best friend's podcast, she's a witch, and so we're doing hers right after yours.
Okay, well, tell her to send a good spell my way. So these are my 2 questions, and I ask this of every guest. And one of them is, what is the beauty in aging? And 2, what is your mantra, and has it changed?
My beauty in aging is wisdom, because wisdom is ageless.
Oh my God, you just lit up when you said that.
Yeah, and I think my mantra is the more you know, the less you know, because there's always more to know.
My mantra. It's like being 12. The stage of life is being 12. It's all curiosity, and I call it the curiosity landscape and learning.
And then the other thing, I think that on the flip side, I think I have a second mantra, which is love. I think love heals all.
Well, you're such an optimist, and I love
I'm
your
not-
soul. It's I love it. It's beautiful, and it gives me hope. So thank you so much for spending this
Yeah,
time with us on Senior Bitches. Grazie mille.
okay. Namaste.
Namaste.